Yeah, so Jeremy, Dr. Werner mentioned collaboration, and our next speaker, Mr. Orlando Flores, is the Chief Engineer for Developmental Test, Evaluation, Assessments, DTE&A, and they are our partners in executing the I-Plan and in determining policy and workforce development as well. So he serves as a principal technical advisor to the Executive Director, Deputies, and Cybersecurity Technical Director for all DT&E and Systems Engineering matters. And prior to that, he served as Technical Director for Surface Ship Weapons within the program PEO Integrated Warfare Systems. He's also served as a Director for Surface Warfare Weapons for the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for ship programs. Sorry. Orlando's had a very long career.
A lot of Navy stuff in there.
A lot of Navy stuff. He's also Deputy Project Manager and Lead Systems Engineer for the Standard Missile 6, Blk IA SM6 missile program. He graduated from New Mexico State University, where he earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering and a Master's of Business Administration. So thank you, Orlando.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Kristen. I got to rethink that bio next time. Kind of long. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the Navy. Proud of that time there doing both system engineering and test and evaluation. So again, yep, the slides. So it's not. I'm not going to see the slides here. Let me just get my paper. So is no, I see myself.
Oh,
which is nice. But,
there we go.
Oh, there it goes. It's changed. All right, thank you. So as the slide states, and as Chris has noted, my name is Orlando Flores. I am the Chief Engineer within the Developmental Test, Evaluation, and Assessments Office within R&E. And I got a slide here in a second that'll show you sort of where we sit in R&E. And as Dr. Werner was talking, I was thinking, I do get this a lot, and our organization gets it a lot. We're not DOT&E. We're a separate arm. We focus on developmental test and evaluation. We sit in R&E, but we're not DOT&E. Which is good. All right. Sort of sometimes we find we have healthy engagements, if you will, across the department in DOT versus what we do in R&E. And today I will be talking to you about what we call in a term that I don't think it's a new term, or it's not that we're inventing a new slice of bread here, but this test as a continuum, and how testing a continuum we feel is key to the future of the department and the future of delivering weapon systems to the warfighters. Okay, with that, and as promised, I also made the assumption, maybe a bad assumption, that you all might understand and know what OSD looks like, but this is a level down. I'm showing you what the Undersecretary for Defense of R&E, our boss, Ms. Shu's organization, looks like. She's there up in the center as the USD. Dr. Honey is the deputy. About a little over a year ago, there was a reorganization. The organization I work in, there in green, the DT&E&A, was buried, or within another organization down, and at the time was called Advanced Capabilities. Ms. Shu came in and reorganized, kind of flattened her organization, and in doing so brought DT&E&A as a direct report to her. A couple other movements was also the elevation of over their systems engineering and architecture. It was a sister organization of ours, was also elevated to be direct report to Ms. Shu. And you may also be familiar with, but TRMC maintained its position within the organization. And then you can see a couple of the other CTOs that she stood up, all with very specific focus in primarily a lot of the R of R&E in the research and science and technology across the department. Okay. My organization. So then one lower step down, DTE&A. My boss is the Executive Director, Mr. Chris Collins. I sit over as the Chief Engineer with my group. We have, and you'll see, well, I'll offer that we're structured very similar to DOT&E, but we also recognize the importance of cyber. We have a Cyber Technical Director, Ms. Sarah Standard. And then across the bottom are the warfare area deputies. Very similar to DOT&E. You can see we all have civilians except for our land systems that's enacting billet right now, but air, land, naval, C4SI, space, and missile systems. And then in the center, I do see, since we're here at IDA, and I see some of my other friends from the external organizations, but we do have very strong support from the FFRDCs and UARCs and government labs as STETSI. I see Dr. Colsey back there, hey Kyle, supporting the work we do across DTE&A. Okay. So what exactly does DTE&A do? I think I'd focus you. I'd ask to focus into this graphic here on the bottom right, because the words up there to the left say the same thing. There's three primary lines of effort that we focus on. First and foremost, it's enhanced program planning and execution, working with the programs of record, right? The folks are actually developing and putting systems in the warfighter's hands. So we have about 115-ish programs that we have on our DT oversight. And those are the programs that we do that day-to-day engagement with, right? Working with the program offices, going to the design reviews, going to their test reviews, going to their test execution, what have you. The second thing we also do is we help to inform the critical acquisition, test, technology, capability assessments. And over to the left there in green and orange, I've highlighted, and down really far left there is what all those acronyms mean. But there's a handful of statutory and regulatory things that R&E must conduct on behalf of the department, those being in green. I should also point out, if I could, back to the title, we are DTE&A. That assessment piece also spans a lot of engineering work. And you'll see the ITRA, CDR, PDR, SEPs. There's a handful of things that we also do in reviewing and working with programs, looking at a lot of their system engineering development and work, and again, the stuff there in green is statutory, and in orange is regulatory. So that's what the bulk of what we do here in this second LOE is getting at. And then finally, the third one, and that's going to be what I talked to you about here in a second, where it comes out of, and it's this look at the future, right? And Dr. Warner talked plenty about it, right? AI, machine learning, cyber, hypersonics, directed energy. There's a lot of things we recognize are coming, and the work we do down here in this championing adaptive DT and system engineering cyber work is focused on leaning forward and looking at that environment and how we best position the department to be ready to engage and hopefully accelerate and succeed over our adversaries. And then on the left, what we did in this graphic here was tied it to the National Defense Strategy, and it looks like everything's covered from what we do, which is a good thing. And then the words, I think, basically tell you about the same thing. The only thing is, I will point that last bullet again. We got about 115 programs on oversight, on DT oversight, and that is, we work hand in hand with DOT&E. Theirs is a little larger, but we work with them, and there is one OSDT&E oversight list that's published online. And if you were to take a look at that, you'll see there is a column that identifies those programs that are on DT oversight. Okay. With that said, I'm going to jump into T&E as a continuum. I'll open by saying this: test and evaluation as a continuum, I'll argue, it's not a new thing. The things I'm going to show you here in about 2 or 3 slides are what we believe is necessary in order to achieve a test and evaluation continuum. Right? We recognize that test and evaluation shouldn't be as serial as it once was. Right? I've got a slide in a little bit. We all grew up, well, maybe we all didn't, but grew up with a system engineering V, and we went down that V and we went back up that V, and for the most part, coming back up that V is where you saw a lot of the validation and the testing. The advancements of technology, digital engineering, model-based system engineering, model-based engineering, is affording us the opportunity to now look across that V, right? We don't necessarily have to wait to come down the V to come back up that V. We can start to do this serially, right? Across the entire life cycle of the program. And not only to the program of record, right? We can start to do this early on the left in areas in mission engineering. And as we start to lay out these capabilities, we can start to do this because the tools, I'll argue that we have the tools now to afford us that ability to do that work from the mission engineering all the way to sustainment. And I think what I just told you is basically what those words try to get across. And the second sub bullet there is what's key and what's important is that we testing should continue to inform and will inform the decision makers across that life cycle, right? Because of the speed of the models and the tools and the things that we have in place, testing ought to be used to inform across the entire life cycle, and hence the word, that continuum of testing and the support that testing does to the department and the life cycle of our programs. Here's the system engineer view. Again, we're not offering or saying that we're going to redefine or challenge the system engineering V. We recognize that a lot of thought went into that, and it's a well-structured way to look at proper system engineering. We're just challenging and offering that we look at how we overlay test and evaluation on that V, and the idea that we can continuously do and conduct that testing with the tools and advancements that we have today to help speed that, and potentially at times, right, got a lot of challenge to this, turn it into an I, right, overlap, bring that V together so that we don't have to have that serial down one side, up the other side. We can start to collapse it by that continuous ability to test. And I believe that's my audio just said everything the bullets did or do. All right. So what does testing as a continuum look like? We believe in order to be successful, you'll have some attributes that need to be executed and enablers. So we've got 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. The next 6 slides after this, I break all 6 of those down for you, but I'll just quickly walk through what we're thinking. And a lot of this aligns with Dr. Werner and what he described in the pillars within the strategic plan, the strategic I plan, and we actually overlaid. If you notice, you'll see on the tops there where we believe our enablers and attributes actually contribute to DOT&E's strategic plan. Likewise, on the bottom are the DE strategy. Again, another foundational document is that 2018 Digital Engineering Strategy, and we also highlighted the areas where we believe these enablers and these attributes contribute and support what is in that strategy. So to the left, capability and outcome focused testing. Dr. Werner described that perfectly, right? This is test the way we fight. It's basically recognizing that we must test the systems the way we fight them, right? We can't test them in labs or in controlled environments. So that's what we get out there. In the center, early, agile, scalable framework, the ability to use that data, use that information to provide those decision makers with the data they need to make the decisions. Enhanced test designs, so looking forward, right, using statistical methods, scientific techniques, Bayesian methods. There's a handful of things that we believe are also critical in advancing our test designs to ensure that right, we're actually spending and doing what's right and not just testing to test. Bottom left, or down here with the enablers, to the left, another point that Dr. Werner made, recognizing the need for live, virtual, and constructive. Just can't afford, for whatever reason, we just can't always do live testing. So we recognize that we need to put an emphasis also on the virtual and the constructive testing. In the center, and I believe is key to achieving this, is a model-based digital environment that we are now living in. Right, in order for us to see this into fruition and see this turn into reality, we must leverage our model-based environment and the tools that offer us that ability to do that. And then last, maybe even more so than anything else, is the workforce to do this. Dr. Werner again mentioned that, recognizing that the folks coming out of college know a lot more than I did when I did, right? You know, I was amazed with email back when I got out of college, but nowadays it's capturing those individuals. It's educating the workforce we have in place, right? We also find that there's a lot of folks in place who are maybe a little older than me, who did it the old way. And the idea here is let's get us all up to speed on understanding how to use these tools, how to use that virtual and constructive environment to support the use of test and evaluation across a program's lifecycle in a continuum. Okay. So the next 6 slides, what I'll do is break down each of those attributes and enablers. On the left are some additional words describing what that particular enabler or attribute, what might be the case is. And then in the center to the right here are actually things we are doing, have done, or we plan to do to support said enabler / attribute. Again, I would offer that we're working with DOT&E, we're working across the department on primarily a lot of this next step stuff, is to ensure that we're both aligned in how DOT&E sees the landscape moving forward, how the department, how ANS sees it, how TRM sees it. So this is a collaborative body of work, and not offering or arguing that this is something that DTE&A is going to do solely without help from the community. So again, the capability and outcome focused testing is mission based. Test the way we fight. It's pretty much that simple, and recognizing that is critical in order to provide and deliver systems to the warfighters that meet the need. Early agile scalable framework. I don't think I made mention of this, but the IDSK, the Integrated Decision Support Key, is a tool that is actually highlighted and noted in the existing current 5000.89, the T&E instruction. And this is a framework that will allow the programs to capture the data, information, not necessarily solely out of testing, but across the life cycle in order to inform decisions, right? And how can we better lay that and understand that for a program, right? To ensure that those decision makers can make the decisions, and we can inform the steps, those milestones, those PDRs, those CDRs, what have you, as a program matures. So and pushing that IDSK and pushing these frameworks into a digital environment is the next step, right? We can't stick to this paper-based way of doing business, right? Moving into a digital environment, we can quickly recognize some challenges, recognize some holes. Idea behind an early agile framework. The last one, enhanced test design. There's a lot of work going on here. Again, Dr. Kolste back there, definitely the expert on this. So I'm probably going to get it wrong, Dr. Kolste. But we recognize the need for enhanced test design and how it can benefit the program by the handful of techniques and ways of doing business to develop tests that are meaningful, that meet the need, and are financially responsible. Down to the enablers. Again, live, virtual, constructive. We can't do it all. We definitely can't do it all live. Resources, test ranges, threats tell us we can't do that. So we have to lean heavily on the virtual and constructive side of doing business, side of doing test and evaluation. And in the center there, there's a handful of things. One of the things actually that is also coming out of Dr. Kolste's organization is these model validation levels, right? The idea of coming in and being able to, similar to the way we do TRLs or any of these other assessments, is what's the level of goodness, if you will, of the models that we're using. And this MVL looks to put those kind of markers on the models, and again, another tool for those decision makers to look at and understand when they're being asked to make decisions based on a particular model. Okay. Model-based environment, digital engineering, model-based system engineering, model-based engineering, whatever you want to call it, this is foundational, right? The push for the department to recognize and embrace the use of digital engineering, our industry partners to do the same thing. I think we recognize that industry they're there. Doesn't mean that those programs and what they're giving us is at that level. We find maybe it's because we've got to put it in the contract. There's things we got to do, and a lot of the work what I'm offering here is we got to figure out better ways to take advantage of it from the department, from our industry, and the tool providers, right? Common tool sets, common models. There's work that we have to do here, but the idea is if we as a department can push in this direction, we will be able to be successful in viewing tests and evaluations of Continuum and its support across the department. I will also argue or offer, not all programs are situated to embrace digital engineering, model-based engineering, and that's okay, right? But for those that are, and we've done a lot of, I definitely been to some places with Dr. Warner. There are programs out there that are doing it, and it's great from the get-go, right? From early on AOAs, they're building everything in a model environment. And that's great to see, but we also do recognize that there's some programs that aren't there yet. But there are areas and ways where they can take advantage of the tools. Temp development, there's digital temps. There's just a handful of ways, but this is going to be a long process, and this is foundational to our ability to see test and evaluation as a continuum across the entire life cycle from mission engineering to ops and sustainment. And then last, the people. We've got to get the people we have in place up to speed and comfortable within the digital engineering, model-based engineering environment, and we got to figure out the best ways to capture those coming out of academia, right? To come work for the government, to come work and do what we're doing here. I do know, I think Dr. Werner and he and I were chatting before this, they do a lot of, I think, internships and things of that nature. We don't do that yet. We do some other developmental work within my organization, but those are all things we support and we'll definitely champion going forward and figuring out how to get the right workforce into the department to do the things that I just described. Okay. So a different look now. So you might ask, all right, so how is this going to benefit me? What I've tried to done here in a two-dimensional way is show here's a decision plane, right? At any point in the program's life cycle. And I have all of those enablers and all of those attributes laid across this card, this decision plane card. And then there's a human in the middle there, a decision maker who takes all that, and you see that red line is the continuum across. And if I could ask you just to mentally see this picture, and I'm going to jump to the next one where I try and give you a 3D dimensional view of it, is that now I can at each of those decision points, based on those products and artifacts and things that each one of those planes or points brings to the table, you can see that continuum. You can see those decisions being informed by one another, and in the watermark behind there, you can sort of see that we try to graphically show the stacking of decisions and how they inform across the program's life cycle. But that's our sort of visual of where we believe and how we believe this notion of testing the continuum and the enablers and those attributes can help feed the decisions, right? Because at the end of the day, that's decisions move programs, and decisions ultimately, the right decisions ultimately will put products and systems in the hands of the warfighter. So obviously this isn't going to happen overnight, right? What are the challenges? Again, getting as the first bullet there, and I mentioned earlier, getting both the department and industry aligned into this model-based approach. There's a number of ways to do it, and I'd offer we're looking at a lot of these ways. We've got some specific work going on in AI, right? Looking at how we can do the engineering, the system engineering to do it right. One of the big ones is contracting, working with industry and the deliverables we ask them for, how we ask them to execute the data, right? There's a lot of things we got to do in order to take advantage of this model-based approach. Lost it. Second bullet there, and I made mention of this, 2 areas where we see this continuum approach and this continuum idea really leaning forward is in AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning programs, and in software, right? Because in software, we recognize there's that iterative, right? Software is constantly being updated, and it can't afford to be linear in that system engineering. We go up and down before a new release. So we find that what we've shown you is very heavily modeled and recognized in a lot of our software systems. Again, the model validation level we believe is also a key in getting to a point where it's usable and understand across the department will be a success in meeting the challenges. And again, just recognizing the integration of both test and system engineering and its support of the system engineering V and how we deliver. Those will all be challenges that we're facing, and we hope to address those as the weeks and months and years go on in the work we do. Not just this year, but next year, and again in alignment with DOT&E. And there are the next steps, right? Here's building a roadmap, working with DOT&E on addressing the things that both I highlighted and Dr. Werner highlighted earlier. we're looking to try and stand up core teams to help those programs of record to see this and how and figure out ways to implement all of those 6 enablers and attributes to address a continuum. You see it again, create an industry partnership with the men and women who are building the systems right in the department, and look for that joint model-based focus and underpinning of how we do test and evaluation, and just socialize and outreach. And I think that's sort of what I'm doing here today is informing you all of how we're seeing things moving in the future, and look forward to your all's support and engagement, and maybe even challenge to what it is we're offering. And here's the takeaways, right? I think it's everything I've said. It's just our ability to enable the delivery of weapon systems at a faster pace, hopefully, than our adversaries are doing the same thing. All right, I think that was. Let me give you a quick little plug. So my boss did here recently within the IT Journal publish an article on test and evaluation as a continuum. There's a URL there on the bottom. And just last 2 weeks ago, we also presented a little more expanded deck than I just showed you here in a DAU Defense Acquisition University webinar. And I was told yesterday that's now out there, so you can probably just look TEC up and DAU webinar, and you'll find that presentation with, I think, the audio, the recording, and a bunch of Q&As to that session. So trying to get the word out, and yeah. All right, that is it. Any questions? All right. Yes.
Thanks. So I guess I was curious, I'm a little familiar with the DOT&E and DOT&E's testing, oversight and all of that. For your organization with oversight, is the testing primarily done by the folks developing these systems, or is there testing from your organization as well, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, no, good question. No, absolutely not. We don't do testing. We oversee. We work with the programs who are doing the developmental testing. When you get to DOT&E, that's when you jump from that DT, development testing, into the operational testing. Warfighters actually at the consoles hitting the buttons. That's the operational, and DOT&E overlooks there. We're in the middle and to the left, right? There's a lot of contractor testing, and we get involved in. There's a lot of programs right now who are looking in transition. We work with those programs on ensuring and in support of this continuum, right? How we can leverage that contractor CT testing into DT, and then hopefully you think it makes sense that we try and leverage it all the way into OT. But my organization oversees and works with those programs. Those 115, 113 programs I talked to you about, those are a very small subset of the programs within the department. We just don't have enough bodies to go and work across the department's programs. But those programs, we work with them and look. But then there are some statutory things by law that says we got to go and do DTSAs, DTA, where we come in and we do our own assessment of where we see a program's developmental test program going, right? What are the risks? What are the challenges? And we do something similar in ITRA, as I put up there, and that's more of a system engineering look, where we look a little broader at all the risks across the program, primarily with the technical focus. So there's a system engineering and a testing component to the work we do, but it's working with those programs, right? I'd emphasize we don't oversight's a pretty strong word. People get nervous with oversight. We try not to come with a hammer. We try and sit down with programs early on, work with them, give them the lessons learned, because we see a lot of programs. Hey, we saw this. Have you thought about that? Is where we try and benefit our role as an OSD arm, if you will.
Gotcha. Quick second question.
Sure.
Red or green?
Red or green?
Since you spent time in New Mexico.
Oh, very good. I love red. But yeah, I'm from southern New Mexico, so I'm right there in Hatch, just south of Hatch. So I got plenty of green chili in my fridge right now, but I'm a red chili guy. Good question. I like it.
Thank you, Orlando.
Okay. No. Those.
Oh,
quick one.
Bunch. Is it quick? Quick.
information on what the system is from DT, and then modify it in some way, which is a big question mark, to serve as a prior in OT. And so, unless you're just going to do something rather simple, but just kind of like, oh, spread it out a little bit because of uncertainty, do you have any sort of better ways to like kind of characterize the system so that we know, like, well, in this way it may be changed a lot, or the testing context changed a lot, in this way it stayed pretty similar?
To avoid me stepping on myself here, I'm gonna ask Dr. Kyle Colsey right there in front of you to see if he's got it.
Great, it's convenient.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so we've had a chance to chat some. Hi, Jim. So we're doing some work both with DT&A, and also we did the tutorial, the other day that you got to attend. And so some of our research, primarily by Major Seek, is looking at how do we blend the different priors from different sources in a mathematical way and different weightings using power methods. And so we can certainly talk about that after the break, and maybe link the two of you up to be able to discuss that.
Oh yeah, no, now I know DB is my point, so that's great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.